looks like either is a Christian or named Christian from Arizona. And it says, the reason I still have faith in God is that it's nice to think of loved ones having a place to go after they're gone. Is your name Christian or are you a Christian? Which one is it?
In name only. Used to consider myself a Christian, and then I did a deep dive into the actual scriptures and also watched one of your shows that a friend turned me on to, and officially deconstructed that. But I do still have faith. I believe in a God of, well, limited power. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Well, it sounds like maybe the belief that you have left over is like a vestigial type of a belief, right? It says that you still have faith because it's nice to think that your loved ones will go somewhere after death. Is that what I'm reading?
I mean, that's definitely a part of it when you see all of the suffering in the world. And, you know, that's why a God of limited power is really the only type of God I could believe in. By the way, the rapture practice thing sounded adorable. I just wanted to talk about that. That said, there are a couple of scientific reasons why I think there may be a creator. One, the idea of the heat death of the universe, entropy, the idea that everything is going to fizzle out and it's just going to be cold and dark for an indeterminate period of time, essentially. And yet no one can explain like where the fuel source came from. That confuses me. I don't really have a lot of confidence in the age of the universe, particularly because no one was there to witness this proposed expansion at the beginning of the Big Bang in the first place, so we have no idea how far out everything is. As far as we know, everything could just be randomly bouncing around out there. I think I just recently heard from Neil deGrasse Tyson we're eventually going to collide with another galaxy, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that would be different though than like the universe at large could be expanding whilst individual galaxies collide within it. So those would be two different concepts.
Oh, sure. That was just my one example.
Yeah, and well, the other thing too is, as far as we know, like there wasn't not that long ago, there was a conference of cosmologists and physicists, and they actually did a survey during the conference of what they think the Big Bang says about, the existence of things prior to the Big Bang. And the overwhelming majority of scientists commented on the poll that, the science of the Big Bang doesn't comment at all about there being nothing or what was prior to the Big Bang. It's just a theory about the expansion of the universe moving forward. And more, cosmologists and scientists are embracing the idea that the cosmos, even though the form we have it now may have been traced back to the Big Bang, that certainly doesn't mean that prior to the Big Bang there was literally nothing. Even in like Lawrence Krauss's book, he spends a whole time in chapter 9 describing when he says something from nothing, he doesn't really mean nothing. Nothing doesn't mean nothing. And so there was a time when the Big Bang was like a new science that people would be like, oh yeah, there was absolutely nothing. And then it gave rise to something, matter, space, and time all came to an existence at once. That's not really the consensus that I'm seeing right now, especially not with the big movement in quantum physics. A lot of people are suggesting that, there could be an eternal quantum field giving rise to matter for an indefinite period of time in the past and in the future.
Sure, I have nothing against, there being something prior to what we know now, and even the possibility of multiverses. It just seems like the more we learn about science, the weirder and cooler it gets. Like, what is it called? The blind slit experiment. Something about two particles behaving differently based on whether or not there's a physical... Oh, double slit. Thank you. Yeah. Reality is bizarre.
It certainly is. I mean, I absolutely agree that reality is wild, and there are so many things we still don't know about it. And certainly agnosticism in the face of that makes sense to me. I mean, I get the idea that, is it possible that there is something that we just can't yet detect with science? I think that's a totally reasonable position. I don't think there's anything in current science that says, oh, this is leading us to a conscious, sentient creator. But I absolutely agree that there's a lot we don't know yet. And again, is it possible that there's something out there that we just aren't able to measure or describe? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I had one question. Is it wrong or silly to hope that consciousness, even though there's no evidence for it yet, that consciousness might go on somehow?
It's not silly. I mean, I think it's such a basic human instinct. For most of human history, humans have had some sort of belief in an afterlife of some kind. And I think a huge part of that is trying to wrap your brain around non-existence is just totally mind-boggling. And so I think that's totally normal and a totally healthy thing. You're right, though, that we don't have any scientific reason to think that consciousness could exist without brain function. We just, even when you talk about near-death experiences, which I think are super interesting, like I genuinely enjoy reading about near-death experiences. You're not talking about someone who has actually completely died and remained dead, right? We're talking about someone who has approached death and come back. And so even those, they still don't give us any empirical evidence that consciousness can exist without a functioning brain in some way. Um, so again, I think it's so human and so normal to want to continue to exist.
I really appreciate the feedback from both of you. I know this is going to be helpful when I can rewatch it a few times, let it all sink in.
Yeah.
And thank you for being so understanding. Oh, go on, please.
So let me ask you a question. Do you believe in evolution?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So like, I think evolution is one of those, I'm going to call it a fact of science that is so firmly rooted. It's hard for me to believe that so many people reject it nowadays. But I think the problem with evolution is like, if evolution's true, like if it's true that that really happened, I don't know how we square that with God creating human beings, right? Because I think typically we think that, well, we're going to spend this afterlife with our loved ones because there's a God who took this time to create the planet for us and to put us on it. But if we just evolved from lower forms of life to where we're at today, it's hard for me to know like how the God equation factors into that, because it doesn't necessarily seem like, if evolution is the mechanism that the God chose to give rise to humans, that he would have like implanted a soul or a spirit to live on, right? At what point in our evolution history did we have a soul? Like when did we get it? You know what I mean? I think we just lost him. Oops.
Oopsie. Well, thank you for calling. You were so lovely.
But that is, nowadays more and more evolution is being accepted by Christians. And I took a class after I already graduated. I try to audit like one class a year because it's free for me. And I took a really fun class, and it was a class on the Book of Genesis, and the professor for the class was really into the BioLogos Foundation and their kind of form of apologetic, which accepts the science. They try to marry the Bible and science together. And I mentioned that like the idea of having a soul seems incompatible if we just evolved. to what we are today, because like there's no real clear reason or rhyme to when there would or wouldn't be a soul that gets implanted. Like, did Homo habilis have a soul? Like,
Right.
where's the limit? It doesn't make any sense, right?
Well, I think it makes so much more sense if you are participating in more either like an Eastern religion or indigenous religion, where it is not just humans who have souls, that there is some, and I'm out of my depth, so don't quote me on this, but, there's some type of spirit, spiritualness to everything versus humans just being the select species that has a soul.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I could rock with that explanation much better than the biblical or the Christian explanation, because it's not a good one. Christian, welcome back.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you saying the connection failed. It was actually me having a senior moment. It's a new phone, and my finger was on the power button, and yeah, I just shut it off on you guys. So I apologize. Thank you for having me back. I promise I used the time away productively. I made some notes here, and I wrote them down after rewatching what you were kind enough to share with me. So I know we were talking about evolution, and you were saying how evolution doesn't necessarily equate to a soul. Honestly, souls and spirits don't make sense to me. Energy changing forms does, if that makes sense. Do I still have you?
Help me understand. Yeah, I thought that you previously said that you believed, or you liked to believe, because of the possibility of your loved ones having like a decent afterlife.
Yes, absolutely.
Does that entail that you would have a soul?
I wouldn't use that word per se. I wouldn't know how to describe it. I would say you would have consciousness. What form, like if there was a physical form that would take, I couldn't really say.
So what do you think it would be living on? Or do you think that the body gets resurrected? Like, what's the view here?
Not necessarily the body. Bodies seem pretty useless. Just the consciousness, the essence of who you are. And by the way, I don't think evolution resulted in humans specifically, or that was like a goal of evolution, like some people might infer. I think evolution just resulted in a beautiful diversity of life. Humans aren't special in that regard. But I also don't think eternal paradise is just for people and, cute dogs. I think it's for all life.
Okay, so not just humans. What are you thinking there, Sarah?
Yeah, so everything that has ever been alive gets to remain alive forever?
Yes, absolutely, if it wants to.
I mean, you'd have a lot of things in play there, like that. So then, if it wants to, I mean, that would mean that every living cell or plant or animal is capable of making a decision about whether it wants to remain alive, and then there would have to be some sort of mechanism by which that decision could be made, and then the effect of that decision. That would be it's a pretty complicated proposition.
I see what you're saying. Everything needing some sort of survival instinct and being able to act upon that.
Well, I mean, generally, like, we don't get to choose if we are alive or not. I mean, I understand we, as humans, have the capability of ending that, but it's not like a moment by moment decision. Would you like to be alive or not? It's not, we can't just close our eyes and decide. We have to take a very specific action. So if every living creature was to be given this choice, then there would have to be some mechanism by which their life could go on or be ended, and then something would have to do that. like it's a hard system, I think, to justify.
Hmm. I guess it just comes from my perspective that all life has value. Everything seems to have something to contribute.
Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense. It's just the eternity part, the afterlife part. I think all life can have value, and it doesn't need to be eternal or infinite in order for that life to have
Well,
value.
to quote the late great, Christopher Hitchens, it's not like a celestial North Korea where, you have to stay there forever. Like, you have options.
Yeah, then you have to have someone
I kinda
who's
butchered that
or
a little
something
bit.
that's creating those options and directing those options. That's complicated.
It is. Yeah, I definitely don't have all the answers, for sure.
I get that.
Sure. I'm curious, would you be of the opinion that getting to participate in the afterlife would be like a true dichotomy? Like you either get to participate in the afterlife or you don't? Or is there an alternative? Like you get sent to, like, I don't know, a purgatory or a hell or something like that?
I think I'm so glad you asked that. I think the concept of a hell is disgusting, and purgatory never made sense to me. No, if there's a loving creator, and I'm not going to assign a gender to a creator, that seems stupid too. If there's a loving creator, oh, for goodness sake, I'm losing my train of thought. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay, if there's a loving creator, and we are all life, if we are all children of that loving creator, then, yes, we're going to make mistakes if we have absolute freedom, free will, but a true loving parent would correct the child, would teach the child, would have patience with the child. Hell is child abuse, plain and simple.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Well, it sounds like you are um, in a really cool place of trying to figure out what makes sense and figure out what aligns with your own values. And I appreciate that you wouldn't want to worship a God that would be cruel and that would be abusive. So yeah, I mean, I get that. I think sounds like you're in a really cool part of your journey.
I appreciate that. It's just, I guess, something I need to cling on to. The evils done by the major organized religions, the things in scripture that justify them, I can have no part in any of that. But I'd like to think I found maybe a happy middle ground.
Well, I mean, we're certainly glad that you're deconstructing and moving into what we would call like a healthier position. So certainly best of luck on your journey. And if you need anything, come and ask questions.
Can I add one last thing?
Mm-hmm.
So the only other thought I wanted to add, and kind of the reason why I felt the pull to come back to some form of theism, is that as a former atheist, it took me personally, and I know this isn't the same for everybody, it took me personally to a very dark, nihilistic place where nothing had meaning, and this kind of helps with that a little bit, that and medication and therapy.
And hey, I will always plug therapy. And yeah, for people who medication is beneficial for, love it. Way to take care of yourself. That's awesome.
Yeah, mental health is important.
Thank you so much for your time. I want to take up the whole day here.
We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. We
Absolutely,
appreciate
it
you
was a lot of
calling
fun.
in. All right, cheers,
You
friend.
guys are great. Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
I do remember being in a similar spot after deconstructing from Christianity where I wasn't quite ready to let go of some of the more pleasing concepts of the religion, like getting to live forever and seeing your loved ones again and things like that. I can certainly understand where he's at right now.
Yeah, for sure. I can't. I mean, it's so much to give up. It is. It's such a. I mean, I think I was weird in that while it took me a year to get there, like I lost all of it all at once in like one moment, which is weird. But I definitely struggled for a long time with the idea of, wait a minute, I'm just going to die? Like, what do you mean I'm just going to die? That's terrible. So yeah, I can really appreciate how uncomfortable and painful and frustrating that is.
Yeah, for sure.